This is the Troutbitten Podcast.
Troutbitten. Troutbitten? Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout. Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten Podcast, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Dominic Swintowski. I'm the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. We have just 2 more episodes in this Troutbitten Skills series on winter fishing. Next week, the full crew joins us to wrap this all up with a few additions, with their ideas, and I'm sure a few disagreements. But tonight, my friend Austin Dando joins me, as always, to address many of the troubles with winter fishing. We've been through the tactics with the dry flies, streamers, and nymphs. We've talked about how to stay warm out there too, and we've saved this topic for last. There are a host of reasons that anglers stay home in the wintertime. Some are legitimate, and there's hardly any good solution, and you learn to deal with it the best you can. We'll talk about some of those. But other perceived problems really aren't much of an issue at all if you have a plan and a solution. And we'll cover some of those tonight too. Austin, before we get going here, I want to quickly tell everyone about our fly tying night and general hangout that's coming up on March 11th, 2023 from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. We've partnered with New Trail Brewing Company in Williamsport, PA for this event. I'm kind of proud of that. They make our favorite beer.
That's true. It's very exciting.
Broken Heels.
It's a keeper.
Yeah. The tickets are $50. We're going to tie a couple flies, the half pint streamer, and the bread and butter nymph. So you get all the materials for those flies. Your ticket also gets you the New Trail and Troutbitten t-shirt with a Troutbitten logo in a beer can, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there are door prizes throughout the evening too. And I have to say that Austin set all this up. This was sort of a back burner project that we wanted to do with New Trail, but I didn't really have the time to set up the logistics. So Austin took the lead and made all of this happen, coordinating it with Dawn over at New Trail. Thank you, Austin. Well done, bud.
My pleasure. Those guys are great to work with. They've made it as easy as possible for us too. So big thanks to them. The first beer of the night is also on them too.
Good point. How many beers will you have, Austin?
Who's counting?
Bill is not counting. He's our designated driver.
That's right.
Bill Dell, designated driver. Anybody who wants a ride home, we're bringing one of those big Ford Econoline vans.
Ford Transit.
With Bill in the driver's seat.
15p. Bill doesn't stay within the lines though. Beware. He's a casual, comfortable driver. If there's no one around, he's gonna abide by his own law.
He gets his share of the road.
He does.
Bill Dell. That New Trail night is going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Honestly, by the time this podcast goes, all those tickets might be sold, but I hope not.
Yeah.
I kind of hope they are, but I also kind of hope not for anybody listening.
Right. Yep. We announced it about 2-3 days ago, and we can host about 60 people, and over half are sold already. So they're going quick, and if there's any left come this time next week, make sure to get your hands on them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward most to just hanging out with people. The fly tying part of it is cool. I did say too in my post for all of this, I always write an article for everything, right? So I did a bit of a press release, and I said, hey, if you don't know how to tie flies and you don't want to bring fly tying gear, don't. Just, come and hang out. And I've gotten a couple responses, guys that bought tickets and said like, hey, I don't know how to tie flies, but I'm coming. Yeah. I want to talk to Austin.
I'm going to give him an education on WWE.
Ric Flair.
Snooker?
Jimmy Superfly. Snooker. Let's not go down that road.
No, we're done. That's over.
It's a dirty road.
That's been sorted out.
Right. It's already been sorted out. Are you ready to talk about our problems, Austin? Our problems for winter fishing?
Yeah, I got a lot of problems.
With you people.
That's right.
Now you're going to hear about it.
That's exactly right.
A little throwback to the airing of grievances, our favorite episode of all time. I'm telling you, dude, it's going to be the
Annual.
I'm telling you, we're going to do airing of grievances, second edition, right? At the end of season 7. Season 7's coming up in the spring. It'll end early summer. We're going to air those grievances again.
I can't wait.
We got more.
Next grievance.
So winter fishing problems. I really do. I think it's these problems or these obstacles that keep most people away from winter fishing. You know what I mean? You agree?
Absolutely. It does.
Mm-hmm.
The inconveniences, be they minor or major, it just adds another step between you and the river. And sometimes when it's not easy, or oftentimes when something's not easy, we simply don't do it.
Right. Which is kind of a Troutbitten mantra. It's just something that we realized a long time ago. If it isn't easy, you won't do it. And that is everybody. I don't care how diehard of a fisherman you are. You don't want to take the time out of your day to spend those extra few minutes just to tie on a new leader. If it takes too long, you don't want to do it. But if you're efficient, then you're good. And anyway, if you have a way of dealing with some of these problems that we're going to talk about here in this episode, then you might go winter fishing. So I have a list of a few things, Austin, that I want to bring up, and I know you probably do too.
Yep.
Would you like to start us off, bud?
Yeah.
Winter problems.
Let's start with maybe the number one problem with ice in the guides. That's a big topic.
No, I never have that problem.
Yeah, you're a
I
liar.
have heated rod guides.
You sound like a fisherman.
Our buddy Steve Sawyer had an idea for heated rod guides. You put a little battery down there in the cork grip. Imagine that, right?
I heard Rosenbauer talking about that on one of his Orvis podcasts, and he was saying, yeah, it's a good idea, but imagine how heavy your battery-powered fishing rod would be.
Why can't just like a AA battery in the cork do it?
Got me, guy.
I don't know. Ask Rosenbauer.
Yeah.
Who's the rod designer? Who's the, what do they call him?
Sean Combs.
Yeah, Sean Combs. Puffy Combs.
Let's figure him out.
Come on, man. Heated rod guides.
Come on, man.
This is 2023.
Give the people what they want.
Give the people what they demand.
Virtual fishing.
That's what Sawyer's good at. He has 3 girls, and he doesn't live close to any trout water, so he does a lot of virtual fishing. I know you hear that, Steve.
It's a good term.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, ice in the guides. It's a big one.
Ice. Yeah, sorry.
Really, for all the problems we have, there's some of them have decent solutions. Some of them have not many good solutions. Unfortunately, ice in the guides, there's no hard, fast rule on how to get rid of it.
That's fair.
There's some things you can do to prevent it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good rule of thumb that the colder the air is, that the more ice you'll experience in your rod guides.
Right.
The other thing with that too is the more humid the air is, the more ice you're going to experience. You may have a mildly cold day with high humidity and experience quite a bit of ice in your guides, or you could have the opposite and have a very frigid day with low humidity and experience less ice in your guides. So it's not always just air temperature.
That's nice. I hadn't thought about that. The humidity. Yeah. But if you're 15 degrees, you're going to have a lot more troubles with ice in your guides than you are if you're 30 degrees air temperature.
Yeah.
So ways to deal with it is just put stuff on your guides, put stuff on the rod guides. And people have been putting stuff on those rod guides for a long time. I remember, man, it was like 98, 99. This is like the infancy of the internet, right? And there's fly fishing forums, and I'm on them.
You're on them.
You were, in diapers at that time, weren't you, Austin?
Hey, now.
Were you alive?
I was alive, yeah.
You're a young man.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just kidding. I do remember, like, people would say, hey, put Pam cooking spray, spray that on your guides. You'll have no problems. Hey, put chapstick on there. You'll have no problems.
Right.
Hey, put olive oil on your guides. You'll have no problems. That was the Italian guys. No problems. Like you said earlier, though, there is no perfect solution for this one. There is none. There is no perfect solution. All of those things, I promise you, I've tried. The best of the ones that I mentioned is chapstick.
Yeah, I also have used Vaseline, similar form.
Do you say Vaseline, or are you going to say Vaseline like the rest of us?
The rest of who?
The cool people.
You
Are
like
you
a
an East?
huge container of Vaseline?
Huge. Trevor makes fun of the way I say the word huge.
Yeah, it's wrong. Vaseline. Vaseline.
Vaseline. All right, so I use Vaseline. I've tried it. It doesn't work very well.
Yeah. The thing is, those items that we put on there, depending on what our leader set up and whatever's going through those rod guides, the stuff wears off.
It does.
Eventually wears down. You get back down to the bare bones of the metal rod guides, and it just starts over. It's a preventative measure, and some of them prevent it longer than others, but it doesn't last a day.
All right, so you know what the winner of all of those things to put on your rod guides is? Give
it to us.
Right, for me, Luna's the brand, and it's called Stanley's Ice Off Paste. And I have it in my vest right now. I used it a couple days ago because it was actually below freezing.
Right.
We've had a very warm winter, and I haven't needed to use this this Stanley's Ice Off Paste very much. It really does. I don't know what's in it. I don't know what it is. It's better than Vaseline. It's better than chapstick. I don't know what it is, but it really does work better than anything else. And by that, I mean, like Austin said, whatever you put on those rod guides is going to wear off a little bit. It's going to wear off, well, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe the Stanley's Ice Off Paste hangs on there longer. Maybe it just does a better job of not letting ice build up. It's a difference maker. And I'm going to tell you, if I put it on all my guides, all the relevant guides, it'll last for about a half hour.
Okay.
At 15 degrees.
Yeah.
15 degree day. That's not bad.
On a mono rig, on a fly line.
You bring up a good point there, right? That's something to think about. Tell us why you bring that up.
Yeah, so there's a major difference of what you'll encounter if you're fishing a fly line, casting a lot. That fly line holds much more water than a thin piece of monofilament may, because it's a thinner line. So when you're casting a fly line back and forth, constantly moving that water that's attached to that fly line is just freezing and building up, freezing, building up, freezing, building up. You put that fly line back in the water, you strip it through your guides again. There's just a lot more traveling through than it does on a thin mono rig. Yeah,
and fly line, kind of is porous, let's say, in a way. If you put it under a microscope, you're going to see little micro pores in the finish of the fly line, which again holds, small bits of water, as opposed to a piece of monofilament, whether that be nylon or fluorocarbon. It's not as porous, or maybe porous at all, and
much more slick.
Right, slick. So it's not holding as much water as it goes through the guides. We've addressed this, really. In the nymphing podcast, we said when it gets really cold, sometimes we'll treat that tight line nymph rig almost like tenkara.
Exactly.
Right? Where we're not shooting line through the guides. We treat it almost as if it's a fixed line presentation. That's a big advantage of a tight line nymph rig. It could also be a tight line streamer rig if you wanted to take it to that point. Fish streamers on a tight line and do that same thing. Don't strip. Just use the rod tip for the animation. You have to do that at a close range. You're limiting yourself, but that's the point. Sometimes you need to make those adjustments, those modifications to your system so you don't build up so much ice in the guides.
Yeah, I guess I would consider those mechanical changes to your day.
Nice.
Casting less, stripping less, just kind of minimizing where you can to prevent the ice buildup. Right.
I know I brought up on a podcast we did not too long ago about a day that Pat and Chase and I had on the boat, and it was 12 or 15 degrees, and we're stripping fly lines, sinking lines, and it was just icing up. And we kept doing it because eventually it did warm up. It got to be 28, 30 degrees. Okay, fair enough. And then we weren't icing up as much, but we really had to put up with a lot of ice in the guides. Now, if we'd have done a mono rig or something similar, we wouldn't have had as much ice in the guides, but whatever. Okay, but how do you deal with the ice that's in your guides? Because you're going to have it. If you're fishing in the wintertime, you're going to have it. What are your tricks, Austin?
Right. So number one, if you're by yourself at least, don't dip or dunk your rod in the river and then go walk upstream and pluck the ice out of your rod guides. walk over to the bank and set it up in a tree limb or something like that, and then just carefully kind of break the ice free. You know what I mean?
I do. I'll tell you what, though.
Is that what you're getting at, or you're talking about something different?
No, I'm all right with that. I would say, like, never slap your rod on the surface if you have ice on the guides.
Oh, okay.
I broke a tip one time. I bring up Steve Sawyer again. Steve and I were fishing on one of our favorite rivers, and I'll never forget this day. I was using my first high-priced rod, let's say. I'd spent more for it than I had money to spend for it. and I had ice in the top, I'm going to say 2 or 3 guides, and I'm like, damn it. And I started just slapping it on the water, hoping to break that ice free, and I broke the rod tip. So don't do that. I guess what I've found, you could do what you said. You could go to the bank and deal with it that way. What I do mostly is just dip it in the water, and just a quick dip isn't going to do anything, but dip it and hold it there. Because, hey, let's admit it, like that water, if it's moving, it's not freezing. So dip it in the water, and eventually that ice becomes liquid. And so you don't have ice in your guides anymore. It helps to, of course, kind of swish it around while you're doing that. And you can kind of see like, oh, there goes the ice. Right
on. And like we've said before, that water temperature can often be significantly warmer than the air temperature. Yeah. So it makes sense that it would melt off.
Right. Around here, again, like we're talking about 40-degree water temperatures. Now, if you're at 33-degree water temperature, you're going to have to dip and swish for a long time. On your hand. That's right. Right. You might need to do Austin's way and just go to the bank and just kind of deal with it. Whether it's after a fishing trip or at a backyard fire, you can bet the Troutbitten crew has a case of New Trail Broken Heels along with us. It's honestly our favorite beer. This hazy IPA is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is a keeper. New Trail beer is proudly brewed in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and delivered cold to your favorite craft beer retailer every week. At New Trail, it's not about being the best angler. It's about getting out there. So enjoy nature's moments and reward yourself for a day well fished with New Trail Broken Heels. It's Troutbitten's favorite beer. Precision Fly and Tackle is a family-owned business with a passion for the outdoors and a sense of adventure. They are anglers who enjoy every moment spent on the water with family and friends. Precision Fly and Tackle carries the widest selection of Euro rods, reels, lines, leaders, flies, and accessories. From the beginner to the advanced angler, Precision Fly and Tackle can outfit every angler, no matter the budget. Visit them online at precisionflyandtackle.com. Then use code TROUTBITTEN10, that's the number 10, for 10% off your order. Gear up with Precision Fly and Tackle for your next adventure. I will say, ice in the guides eventually gets to the point where I don't want to fish. It gets, we talked about this in an earlier podcast in this season, Austin. You were saying how even the nymph was getting ice around it. You were getting a ball of ice around your nymph. Like, you're no longer fishing. Like, that is the point where I'll give up and I'll go, okay, I can't fly fish today.
Yeah, when your tippet section turns into a chain of ice speeds and you can only cast 3 times between clearing ice out of the guides, it's just, you're just waving your stick around.
That's it. I mean, seriously. Yeah, neither of us are going to tell you that you should be fishing at that point. Nope, you just got to go home then.
Or take a walk in the woods and enjoy yourself.
There you go. Sit down and remember why you're there in the first place. That's right.
Yep.
So ice in the guides, that's one thing. I'm going to bring us to the next thing, access. I guess what I mean by that is sometimes if you get a good snowy year, I say good because I love the snow.
Yeah, man.
My wife earlier today said, oh, isn't it nice? We're having baseball practice, right? I coach Little League. Oh, we're going to have 2 practices outside this week. I said, that sucks. And my wife, like most people, oh, this is nice. Oh, it's nice weather. And I'm like, I feel like I've been robbed of wintertime. That's what I told her. She doesn't like hearing that. She's like, what? I love the snow. And I'm going to say, I love when we kind of get snowed in from certain access areas.
Right.
I really do. When you have to really almost plan ahead, maybe scout out the areas that you plan on fishing tomorrow. Or, I don't know, if you're going to fish a certain section and you have to drive up 5 miles upstream and 5 miles downstream just to see where you're going to be able to park, I think that's all right. That's part of winter fishing. I like kind of getting what I call snowed in, where many of the access areas are just plowed in and you can't park where you normally do. That's okay.
I like that challenge too, especially if you're looking to fish a certain area that doesn't have an access that is plowed out and you have to hike to it, and your boot prints are the only ones that are going to be going back there for the next week or so,
That's awesome. That's the way to put it.
Yeah.
It's all yours then. You talk about angler pressure. I mean, okay, how many flies have those trout seen in the last 2, 3, 4 days, or hell, maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, I love thinking about that. But that walk back, if you are walking in, let's say, a foot of snow or more, that can be really tiring. That can be another problem sometimes, is just getting overworked, just trying to get back to the access. If you're truly the only tracks that have packed down any snow, you are pioneering that trip, and it can wear you down, overheat in a matter of minutes. Yeah,
that's the strange thing about winter fishing. It's cold out there. Let's say it is 20 degrees. You get out of the truck and you're putting all your stuff on. Now you got to do what you said, because you had to park a quarter mile at least down from where you normally would to go get that piece of water that you want, that you really want to go get. So you go get it. But now, like you said, maybe you're going through a foot of snow or more that no one else has gone through. It takes a lot of extra energy. All of a sudden, you're building up a lot of body heat.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it in episode 3 of this podcast: head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And we need to be able to regulate that body heat, to be able to release body heat that you build up just as much as preserve it. And that's really the key to how you dress in the wintertime.
Yeah. So on days where I know that I have a long walk ahead and there is a foot or more snow on the ground, I'm not dressing up all the way before I start walking. I'll leave a few layers off, head off down the trail, and then wait until I've sort of cooled down to a safe degree to start layering back up again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it takes a certain degree of planning. You got to know what you're in for. If you've been through it before, you're going to realize, wow, walking through a foot of snow really builds up a lot of body heat. So you're not going to wear all your layers. Maybe you carry them, or you put them in your backpack, or the backpack part of your vest or whatnot. Another part of planning, I'm going to circle back around here, is that when I'm talking about access, some of those areas that you feel like you can't get into right off the road because they're plowed in. Like, dude, I keep a shovel in my truck, and my dad taught me that.
Right on.
And it wasn't for fishing; it was just for safety, Dom. My dad had I have this burgundy duffel bag that my dad gave me. Right? You've seen it, right?
Yep.
When I was, I'm going to say 16, maybe 17 years old, my dad was like, here's, there's a bunch of winter clothes in there. And there's there's a de-icer, like a Prestone de-icer.
Nice.
For whatever, and there's some heat packs in there. They're probably too old by now. My dad gave me that when I was real young, but also with that came this shovel. And that was for if you ever, have an accident and you get stuck on the side of the road, here's the shovel and then some clothes to keep you warm. But that has become my winter fishing pack. As soon as we're starting to have some snow, that burgundy duffel bag goes in the back of my truck. And then I say truck, I have a 4Runner, and it goes in the back there. And then that shovel, I swear it's the same. It's a coal shovel, because we're from Western PA. We're in coal country. It's a little coal shovel.
Yeah, perfect size.
It is. It's packable, yet it'll get the job done too. And I've used that multiple times. I've shoveled mud with it too. But there are plenty of times where I'm like, I can get in here, and I know I'll have to do a little bit of shoveling to get out, but I'm going to put my 4Runner in this almost snowbank, because I know I can get out of it with this shovel. Yeah. I'll be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A good trick I learned from you, kind of going off with that, is when you pull into a snowy area, let's say it's not packed down.
Yeah.
You'll pull right in pretty aggressively and get your tracks set. And then you'll go in reverse and you'll go back and forwards a few times to sort of rock your way and pack that snow down really tight. So by the time it comes for you to leave, You can reverse out and be good to go.
Yeah.
I've sort of replicated that after watching you do it the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's a good idea.
Well, that's another trick from Dad.
Yeah.
It is.
I bet it is.
Because say you're going in at 8 o'clock in the morning and now you go back and forth. You've created some tracks, and let's say a little bit of sun comes out, and now that sort of solidifies those tracks that you made.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like that.
You got a way out. So we're talking about all this snow, and I do miss it this year. But I will say that when the snow's flying and you're trying to follow your line, whether you're nymphing or you're dry fly fishing or whatever, it's hard to see. That snow makes it, right? It's hard to see through it. I mean, that's a trouble. It's a problem. But I don't care. I mean, if I have snow flying and I'm fishing, God, I'm like, this is a special moment. I'm going to live it up.
Soak that in.
Right?
The other one, speaking of snow, is just the sun reflecting off of it. That can be sometimes hard to see, almost blinding, snow blind.
Of the snow on the ground.
Yeah, the snow that's falling on the ground. If you get in the wrong location, or if there's a hillside that's beaming right at you, I mean, sometimes you can't hardly see anything off that glare of the water.
Mm-hmm.
That can be an issue.
I think March is often some of our most difficult situations. We'll have some bright, sunny days in March, and now the sun is starting to come up higher. The arc of the sun is higher in the sky, and you'll have bright, sunny days with, of course, no vegetation, no leaves on the trees, and it's just bright. And today was one of those days. Now we're only, February 20th right now, but we have like an early spring kind of conditions. I saw at least another 24 olives on the water. Still no risers. I saw a granome as well. I saw one granome.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Now, hold on. Going back to Western PA, is it a granome or a granum?
Nah, whatever way I say it is the right way.
I think you're in the minority.
You're on granum. It's more efficient.
Okay.
I'm probably wrong. Granum. I should change, huh?
There you go. You're fixed.
When they really show up, they're going to be all over. It's a blanket hatch. I saw one today. And I said, go away. Tell your buddies. No, it's not time yet. That's April, man. Get the hell really out of here.
I keep thinking like next week's forecast is going to look normal again. Like, it's a warm patch, which it's going to blow through. But it really hasn't changed, has it?
It's not going to change.
I fished last week. It was 68 degrees.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Right? Like it should be 20.
Uh-huh. Aiden had a basketball game that day. I didn't fish. But Joey, my oldest son, and I were talking just yesterday about, he said, I don't think we're really going to have winter. I said, exactly. Nope, we're not. I think you've seen your last snow. And even if we get a few flurries, it's not going to stick. Nope, we're done.
Crazy.
I don't like it. Punxsutawney Phil was wrong. We're not having 6 more weeks of winter. Not real winter. Don't like it. Don't like it.
It's a problem.
All right, so we talked about being too cold, so you put a bunch of layers on for the walk-in and whatever, and don't put too many on. But cold is the number one issue. That's the thing. That's the biggest problem, right? That's the biggest trouble out there. And that's why we spent 2 full podcasts on how to deal with the cold. Talked about just your hands for one episode, and then the rest of your body in the next one, episode 3.
Yeah. People
do not want to fish when they aren't comfortable. And that's fair. Like, I get it. Most fishermen are not, super diehard about it. They are going at it as a recreation, as a hobby, as something that they want to do to have fun. And if you are uncomfortable and like something hurts a lot, like your toes or your hands or your whole body's just shivering, well, you're not comfortable. You're not having fun. So you're not going to do it for very long.
I think wintertime is a good teacher as to show you what parts of your system are inefficient. So
yes,
everything requires, or anything that requires dexterity or changes. If the changes are difficult, they're going to be magnified by the winter time.
Yeah.
So if you need to change a leader or change a fly or change your tippet and you're struggling, that's all the more reason to work on that stuff, inside or indoors all throughout the winter, so that you have that stuff down pat. It's fluid, and it's not it's not a clunky process to do those changes.
That's a great point. Yeah, I will say I change less in the wintertime. I talk all the time about being a versatile angler. We have a full podcast on that. It's one of those, again, Troutbitten mantras, I suppose. Be versatile, change, adapt to the fish, meet the trout on their own terms. In the wintertime, I don't change as much. Today, all I did was tight line nymphing. I didn't throw an Indy on. I didn't change leaders. It was actually on a thin leader instead of my standard. I fished 1 leader. I think I fished about 5 different flies, and I fished for 5 or 6 hours too.
Yeah.
That's it. And I didn't feel like changing. Let's point this out. There are a couple of reasons. Now, really, it was 50 degrees today. That's not winter fishing, to be honest.
Right.
So changing rig wasn't a big deal. Now, if it was 15 degrees, I'd have said, I don't want to change rigs because my hands are a little numb and because slowing down kind of makes me cold. And so that's one reason we don't change in the winter. That wasn't my reason today. Today it was because the fish were a little tougher. The fish were coming, I'm going to say 1 every 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes. We've acknowledged before in this Winter Skills series that the winter fishing is just generally tougher. And regardless of the outside, of the air temperature, these fish are still in their winter habits. And so it was harder to find them, harder to convince them. So the fishing is generally tougher. And because of that, I don't want to be trying different patterns, different rigs and changing as much. I will stay, put it this way, I'll stay with my confidence rig for longer. And when I have the confidence to come off of one rig and go to another one and say, this is what I want to try next, I'll try it for longer. So instead of just 10 minutes of a trial, I might go 30 or 40 or 50 minutes. I don't know, maybe an hour before I come off of it. Whereas in the spring, summer, fall, I might say, okay, 10, 20 minutes. Okay, that didn't work next thing.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Going back to leader changes and leaders in general.
Okay.
Different monofilaments react kind of individually depending on how cold the temperature is. Some hold a coil worse than others. I think Maxima is sort of the best option there that we've found.
Yeah.
What have you found with testing other materials that you'd say holds a coil worse or better?
That's a very good point. So you're talking about monorigs where what's in your hand is monofilament, whether that be nylon or fluoro. It's almost always nylon for us. The number one thing, Austin, the thinner the material is, the less it holds a coil. And so if you're on a 5-pound micro thin monorig, it's going to coil way less, probably hardly at all, compared to the 20-pound. I will say if you have Maxima Chameleon, and if you stretch it, it'll stay flat almost all day. You have to realize too, though, there's a difference between coiled and twisted. And so sometimes the way you wrap that leader onto the spool, or around your hand, the way you stored that leader, you've twisted it. And so you need to let it untwist. I was experiencing that today, and I've been through it often enough that I realized, I need to let the whole leader stretch out behind me, downstream of me, and just let it down.
Just let
there.
it drift down.
Right. And let it unwind without a fly attached. And let it unwind just the way it wants to. And let it untwist. Anyway, there are different materials too. What's your best material for not holding a coil, Austin?
Maxima Chameleon.
Yeah.
That's a standard. I know we've talked about OPST. Sometimes can be a harder line to fish in the wintertime because it's a little bit more rigid.
Yeah.
And when it does get colder, it doesn't really flow as freely or be as flexible, let's say in 30, 40 degrees and higher.
Yeah. Amnesia, I'm going to say it's pretty consistent throughout the seasons. Of course, it'll be a little stiffer in the wintertime, but once you stretch it, it'll stay pretty flat for a while.
I know Bill fishes that because of that reason.
I know.
One, for the visibility of it, but two, because of its ability to stretch out for those coils.
That's a good point, what you brought up there about the lines. Even your fly line, I would stretch it. I'd stretch it at the beginning of the day. The fly line holds a coil too. Hey, so a couple more things. I mean, if you fall in the wintertime, let's say again on a 15 or 20 degree day, you might be done.
Yeah, and that's another thing to plan ahead for. Just like we plan ahead on where to park, you have to sometimes plan ahead to fall in. So you've got your burgundy emergency bag.
Yeah.
We should also have a spare set of clothing either in a bag in our vest, like I know you've talked about, or just in the car that you can walk back, change out, get dry, and get warmed up. Sometimes even falling in, but we have to wade cautiously in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
We at least should have some sort of heightened awareness in the wintertime when we're wading. When I wade too deep, I'll say too deep as in the bottom of my vest gets soaked in the river.
Yeah.
If my nippers or my hemostats, the zingers on those will get wet, those will freeze. My tippet spools will freeze. Anything that touches water that needs to move basically becomes inoperable. So falling in, the same thing will happen. Yeah. But even just wading too deep, you'll be out of business some days.
Yeah. I said your day's probably done. But like you just pointed out, if you have clothes back at the truck, you could be okay. But my gosh, that's a process.
Yes, it is, especially if you've hiked.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if it's windy too, man, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think most people would just go home. There have been plenty of times, though, where I've been on let's say a destination trip. You know, I drove 2, 3, 4 hours to get somewhere, and you're like, well, I got this change of clothes. I'm getting all these wet clothes off. And often, well, yes, on destination trips, I have a second pair of waders with me, too, because you never know. So I take my backup pair of waders, which probably have leaks in them anyway.
That's a good point.
Right. But they're not as leaky as, well, the wet from inside ones that you just went for a swim in. Anyway, it's something to think about, right? In the summertime, or let's say in the late springtime or something, if you fall in, you're like, damn, that's inconvenient. But falling in the wintertime can absolutely ruin your day.
Yeah. Like I shared 2 weeks ago, I fell in.
Right.
And luckily it was towards the end of my day, but it was a warmer winter afternoon and it didn't do me much harm. But I've fallen in many times in the winter and just simply had to go home because I wasn't prepared.
Right. I remember my dad fell in one time. He goes, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. And he's pretty tough. But like an hour later, he's like, getting pretty cold. Ready to walk back when you are.
Yep. It's hard too when you didn't drive.
Right.
With another person.
Right. Yeah. And I don't care. You can only be so tough in the winter. And then eventually that cold just catches up with you. And hey man, if you're shivering, it's not mind over matter anymore, you know? Tactical Fly Fisher was founded by Fly Fishing Team USA angler Devin Olson to bring anglers cutting-edge gear and techniques from the international competitive fly fishing scene. Tactical Fly Fisher's aim is to help you improve your angling ability so you can have more fun on the water. Whether you need some flies, fly tying equipment, or a new rod or reel, they've got you covered. Head on over to tacticalflyfisher.com and use the code TBPOD10, that's TBPOD10, to get 10% off flies, fly tying supplies, or terminal tackle. For over a decade, Smith Creek has provided innovative, high-quality fly fishing accessories designed to put your gear in easy reach, free up your hands, and keep our waters clean. For 2023, check out the all-new patented tippet holder. Each unit is individually machined from billet aluminum and anodized in 2 eye-catching colors. They hold up to 5 tippet spools with a spring-loaded plunger that is quick and easy to use, keeping your tippet spools right where you need them. Also, the brand new Rod Clip Plus comes with an improved 304 steel pin, plus a carabiner clip, giving you 2 ways to attach it. All Smith Creek products are built guide tough and backed by solid customer service. To learn more about Smith Creek products, visit their website at smithcreek.co.
I once saw a man in the middle of wintertime with a spin rod, wet wading in jean shorts and construction boots up the middle of one of the biggest rivers around here. And I couldn't believe my eyes. He was pretty tough.
Well, how long did he last?
I don't know. I didn't stick around to find out.
Yeah, that's impossible. You know what I mean? Like that's.
But he was out there.
Oh,
we don't recommend that.
Right. I believe he was out there, but nah, he wasn't fishing all day, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I mean. Eventually, the whole mind over matter thing just catches up with you, and you go, your body just shuts down and goes, okay, we're going to shiver until you get us warm. The other thing you don't want to get wet is the reel. You know, you don't want to fall in. Yeah. You don't want your reel to fall in.
Yeah.
Again, man, like it doesn't matter when it's 35 degrees, 40 degrees. Of course it doesn't matter. Your reel's not going to freeze up. But if it's 15 degrees and if your reel falls in and it gets completely wet, oh man, that can ruin your day.
Yeah. And that can be somewhat of an endless cycle too, because just like getting the ice out of our guides where you can kind of put the rod tip in the water and let that warmer water melt off the ice.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing with your reel. You know, you put it underwater, you hold it there for a little while, and you start pulling line off.
Yeah.
But there you go. It restarts the clock, and you're going to get 2 minutes in, and it's going to freeze up, and you're going to be dunking it. Like, you can't really get out of that one unless you get it really dry or you have a spare reel for that occasion.
Yeah. Have you done that? Like, it got that frozen up, and then you tried to dunk it to unfreeze it?
Oh, yeah.
Are you serious? I never was that dumb, Austin.
It works.
But it works for, like you said, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, you could have another reel and all that stuff. But that in itself, walk back to the car, change your reel, restring everything. That's a half hour in itself.
Mm-hmm. Easy.
Yeah, it's just another thing to keep your mind on. It's like, man, I gotta be careful I don't dunk this reel in the wintertime.
So as far as the fishing goes, then sometimes even just finding the fish can be a challenge.
Yeah.
We've talked about before in previous podcasts how sometimes they tend to group up and not spread out so much. They'll kind of sit in pods more or less. And you can go a long time without catching anything and all of a sudden run into a patch of fish.
Right.
More so than just any other time of the year.
That's true.
There may well be no trout or next to no trout holding in those really good looking runs and riffles. They may be all pushed down to the bottom of the pool. They may be within 30 yards of each other and there's 100 trout there and you can't see them. It can be a bit of like a needle in a haystack. It feels like some days.
Yeah. Yeah. What you said is maybe, they may be, right? Like you're not quite sure.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Today, I was surprised to find them in some pretty fast water, the fastest water that I found them in. But also, I told you, I saw olives and I even saw a granum.
There you go.
And there were midges in the air. I saw no rising trout, but come on. Those trout are starting to possibly move into a little bit faster water and expect the hatches to happen, which is a little early for, mid-February, but fair enough.
Yeah, not typical.
Right, but point is, like you said, maybe this, maybe that. It's not predictable. It's just not predictable. And in spring, summer, fall, we like to think, and it's true, that they're very much spread out. They could be in a lot of different water types. And, the trout who like hanging out in the faster water are there. The trout who like hanging out in the tail outs and the softer stuff are there. And yeah, you can kind of make the most of the whole river. But man, in the wintertime, you got to find where the trout are. That is tough. We've talked about that in other podcasts. They're not spread out. Like you said too, when you find one, you're going to find another.
Mm-hmm. I really do think that.
Yeah.
And I don't say that either to neglect the rest of the river. So don't walk upstream and say, that water is moving a little fast. I'm not going to find them there today. I still say check it all.
Yes.
Don't spend too much time in one place.
Yes.
And collect that data as you catch fish, but still check it all out till you have a good understanding and not just luck into one fish or two fish, but really understand why you're catching fish and what water type and make that work for you.
Yeah, that's neat. That's a big part of the puzzle in the wintertime is finding trout. That confounded me for years. Just understanding that, okay, in the winter, they really are going to be in different places. I kind of had to realize it and admit it to myself. I had to see my buddies catching fish in water that I was neglecting and then go, all right, I guess that's where the trout are because I'm not catching them up here. It's a good lesson. And as I said in the last podcast, it's really cool, to have those friends that you learn from. And it's difficult to learn things all by yourself. I'm fortunate to have had that group of friends that we were all kind of learning together. I learned a lot from Pat, from Sloop, from Matt, from my buddy Steve.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't
right
for
on.
them, you know, I might have given up on winter fishing, but I realized like, oh, I should do it this way because they were having success. And
Yeah.
I don't know, hopefully that's kind of what we're doing here is we're telling
Right.
you, if you buckle down and you figure it out and you go day after day, you're going to find success. Anything else, Austin?
Yeah, I think I'll piggyback off that a little bit. You know, wintertime, just as the title of this podcast suggests, brings problems with it. Along with those problems comes frustrations, inconveniences, just stuff that makes you want to give up and never go out in the wintertime again. You know, our boot laces freeze up. You can't untie them when you get back to your car.
Yeah.
Your felt bottom boots make you 8 inches taller and you're falling all over the place. You know, there's all sorts of weird stuff that happens in the wintertime.
Right.
But what I would want to just say is to encourage you, if you've been out there lately or you've been out 1 or 2 times and just feel like you've gotten beat up and maybe that's not for you, but take what we're saying to heart and maybe put some of those things into practice, even if it's just 1 or 2 things to focus on each time you're out there. Change 1 or 2 things about your wintertime fishing habits that you find to be a challenge, or focus on those and try to improve them. And over time, you'll become more and more comfortable and more confident in your ability to go out there, have fun, be comfortable, and just enjoy yourself.
Well, that's just about perfect. There you go. It is a challenge. That's what we love about it. It's the biggest challenge of the year, I think. When you get real winter conditions, that's it. Go get it. If you can fish in the wintertime and catch trout, you can do it any time of the year.
Right on. Love it.
What about story time? Before we wrap it up here, Austin, you got a last story for us?
Yeah, I got a story that involves the both of us and our buddy Pat Burke.
I'm involved?
Yeah, you're involved.
Okay. Yeah.
So is your shovel.
Oh, yeah, I know where we're going.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So this was, what,
Yeah.
2 winters ago.
Right, exactly.
Our buddy Pat Burke is a diehard muskie angler, and he's very good at it.
Yep.
And he invited us to go out and join him on a cold winter's day.
Yeah.
And before the trip, we had experienced some really high flows.
Yeah.
And so much so that some of the bigger river systems have come up, flooded boat ramps, washed mud up on them. But, you know, as things had rescinded again, we thought, all right, you know, we'll be able to drive down here, put the boat in, pull back out, be
Well,
fine.
Pat thought that. This is classic Pat. This is a classic Pat story.
So I didn't know any better. I've never been to this place. I've never seen this boat ramp in my life. I'm not driving, whatever.
Right.
So we start to back the boat down. Or Pat starts to back the boat down. And all of a sudden, what was it? The hitch wasn't actually set on the ball right.
Yeah.
And the whole thing jackknifed. And the boat would have just totally separated and flown off down trailer and everything into the water had not like the emergency arrest chains been attached.
Right.
So we're pointed backwards. The front half of the boat is sticking up in the sky.
Yeah, everything's wrong. Yeah.
Everything's wrong and backwards and bad. And I have photo evidence of it.
Right.
You guys had basically just like lifted the back end and pushed the front end down to get the ball hitch to engage again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got that back together. All right, let's try to back down the boat ramp again.
No.
All right. So we try to pull up to reposition the boat. Can't pull up.
Nope.
The whole thing is frozen mud.
Yeah.
Which we realized as we were trying to navigate the boat back into position because we couldn't hardly stand on the slope.
Yeah. In our boots.
Yeah.
Boots.
So we spent however long shoveling the slippery mud out from underneath the tires and trying to get the Tacoma to pull the boat back up out of the slip.
With my dad's shovel.
With the dad's shovel.
From when I was
And
16
Pat had
years
some
old.
little kid snow shovel in the back of his truck.
That's right. Yeah, a little plastic one.
Yeah.
And I had dad's coal shovel, and we got the work done.
Yeah.
But boy,
So then we pulled off to a different boat ramp, which you hadn't pulled into before.
we had a decent day.
And, well, it was a challenge to get in there because it wasn't paved, right? Wasn't it just
Right.
like soft ground?
Right. That was almost better.
Yeah. So what do? We took sticks and we broke
Mhm.
up a bunch of sticks and we made a
Mhm.
little trail
Yep.
and backed the tires over the narrow path of sticks, got
Yep.
the boat off of there and pulled back out, parked it and caught nothing.
Making a little stick road like that also comes
Yeah.
from my dad, where we
There you
were
go.
on. Dad had pulled his camper down, I'm going to say 150 yards off of the dirt road. And then it rained, and it rained, and it rained. We were there for 3 days. He goes to pull out, couldn't get any traction. So Dad had the idea, well, let's take sticks and build a road out of sticks on top of this muddy trail, and it worked. But man, it took a couple hours to get out of there.
Sure. That's a lot of work.
Right. And when Dad finally got traction, he had a Ford Ranger and he's pulling a Coleman camper, a pop-up camper behind it. When he finally got traction, he started gunning it. I mean, he's going fast. And I'm like the lookout guy, right?
Yeah.
And there's, multiple trees for Dad to go right and left and to dodge, to go around. He's not only the Ford Ranger, but the Coleman camper to come around. I'm the lookout guy, so he's about halfway up, and I'm like, oh my God, that camper is just going to hit like right into a 12-inch wide tree, right? And so I'm like, Dad, stop. But he was so excited that he got traction after 2 hours. He's like, I'm not stopping.
Yeah.
And he just kept going. And I'm telling you, Austin, he couldn't have been more than a half inch away from hitting that poplar tree or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He was so close. Whatever. He got to the top of the road.
Yeah, he did. Go Dad.
Yeah, Dad did it. That's my dad. And he did it. And he got to the top. And I go running up there. I'm like, man, you almost hit that tree. He goes, I know. I had traction.
I had the traction.
That's right. He goes, I had the traction.
Not going to give it up once he gets it.
I'll never forget that. That was, oh my gosh. Dad and I had some good winter days in that pop-up camper too. All right, Austin. So next week, the rest of the guys will join us and tell us what we got wrong.
I'm counting on it.
Right. Mostly.
Couldn't have gotten it all right.
Right. Mostly what you got wrong and what you forgot to say.
Yeah, well,
Bill said that he took notes.
Oh, yes. I'm sure he's got a spreadsheet that's like dictated with a pivot table for each episode. And
So next week is the Bill Dell podcast. And we'll see you all then. Austin, you want to read us out?
I will. Remember, the Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 900 articles with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags too. Be sure to find the Troutbitten YouTube channel, currently featuring the Troutbitten Tips series in collaboration with Wilds Media. These are short, useful, and unique tips for your fly fishing life. Thank you so much for listening to the Troutbitten Podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment, because it really does help. Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water. Hey now. He's a casual, comfortable driver.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure to get your hands on him.
Vaseline.
Snooker?
It's there, baby.
Yeah, good.
So, Austin, I have a list of a few. Nah.
That was a good one.
Shit.